You know,
Sorry.
that's okay. Going into our heart space and seeking out that connection when, like Claire says, we're feeling attacked, or we are just noticing how we're different from other people, and the divisions that seem to be so encouraged by the media at the moment. The division seems to be everywhere, and so at times it's really difficult to get into that space and make that choice, because it is a choice, but sometimes a very difficult choice, to actually seek out the connection. How do we do that? So that's what we really wanted to talk about tonight, how these things can work on a practical level in our lives. And also in terms of questions, we haven't had many questions coming to us in the last few weeks, but there is still one that we didn't answer from Big Heart. And Nikki, it might be your question. It was someone called Nikki, so I think it's you. You had a question. I don't know if you still remember it because it's a while ago, but you were asking about coherence, heart coherence, and how that affects someone's healing. I think you meant physical healing, but you can clarify, and how that may differ from healing. So healing in a coherent state as opposed to healing when the nervous system is in a parasympathetic state. Is that your question? Did you want to expand that, or have I sort of...
Yeah, that was my question. And also in terms of being in a parasympathetic state, there's also the polyvagal theory with the ventral vagus and the dorsal vagus. So presumably it's that connected state being in the ventral vagus, that's where you're going to heal. But I was just wondering what the difference, I suppose scientifically or technically from the heart-brain coherence that you measure with HeartMath.
So we had a little chat about this very briefly just before we started tonight, and I think the conclusion was, Peter or Claire or Louise, you can add if you want to. The conclusion is first of all, we need a lot more research on all of this, because although we're talking about research, there's still huge gaps in our knowledge. Now, in terms of heart coherence, I would say that probably the HeartMath Institute in America have done some of the leading edge research in this area, but they're not a massive organization, and they have been going for a few decades, but they still haven't been able to answer many questions. And there are other scientists as well, scientific groups that are involved now. And I think it's an area that's only going to attract more interest from scientific groups. But at this stage, there's still many questions to answer. As Peter said, in terms of the connection and communication, we sense that there's definitely something going on with the heart. I mean, it seems quite clear looking at the heart rate variability patterns and how they shift. But it's also the case that there will be connections with the brain as well, and the nervous system. And, we are energy beings. All of our organs, all of our systems, all of our cells have an energy field. And so it's highly complex. All of those energy fields overlap, interact, and the heart's energy field is the most powerful in the body, and so therefore can entrain other systems. But it's a highly complex system, our communication, and the whole subject of coherence. So really what I'm wanting to say is that I think we can't answer a lot of these questions with absolute certainty right now. But when we had a brief chat earlier, we felt that the two states will be very similar. Certainly, the heart, when it is in a coherent state, that is matched by us being in a relaxed parasympathetic state. So the two things certainly overlap. So we felt that healing in those two states, well, they overlap anyway, so it will be very similar. Does anyone else want to add anything on that. Do you have a sense, Nikki? I'm wondering, are you a health practitioner?
Yeah, I do
What's
have a
your
health
interest?
background. Yeah. I'm both medically qualified and nutritional therapy.
Okay, right. So are you using these sort of approaches with your clients, or?
I will be. Yeah, I'm interested in the heart math and doing a bit of the further training.
Okay, okay. And Gabrielle, you've got your hand up. Did you want to say something? Please join in.
Thank you. I just wanted to add, like that is close to my heart. Actually, we have a long history of scientists of the heart, of philosophers of the heart, and we often have forgot about them because, like, philosophy was always about thinking with the heart, and the language is sometimes a bit difficult to understand because we are not used to speaking that way. But I think there's also very deep fountain of knowledge we already had, and they thought about societies and what to do and all this. So it was just to my heart to mention that 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 it was in the what we have now, that this whole approach with natural science and measuring science, the heart was a part of science. It's just gotten in a really one-dimensional course or part. How would you say it?
Absolutely.
And there just popped one quote up from a Scottish philosopher, if you allow me to read that.
Of course,
because
yeah.
it's from 1759, and it's the first, it's from his book The Theory of Moral Sentiments. How selfish soever man may be supposed, there are evidently some principles in his nature which interest him in the fortune of others, and render their happiness necessary to him, though he derives nothing from it except the pleasure of seeing it.
Lovely. Thank you. So who was the name of that?
Adam Smith.
Okay.
He is really well known for his The Wealth of Nations. Actually, they splitted his knowledge and put, like, the whole thing we have now with the everybody looks for their own and the selfish. They splitted his knowledge, and he actually said, no, it's not only we are selfish people. We are happy because of the others. They don't always use the term heart in general. They don't use the term heart so often, but basically it's all about the heart.
I think you're so right about how our ancient ancestors and the philosophers and scientists of old saw the heart as much more than just the one-dimensional or two-dimensional heart that we understand now. And I think I talked about the word corruption earlier and how there is that link to the heart. I think if we look at some of our language, we can see where the heart comes in. Courage, for example, we think of from the heart, and that also has core, the Latin, the heart in that word. And I think when we start to explore language and some of the sayings we have around the heart, so many involve the heart, that we start to get a bit of a sense of how the heart had a much broader meaning to us than it does now. So that point was really good, Gabrielle. And just going back to Nikki's question, I think that we did understand so much more about the heart, even on a scientific level, than we do now. For example, Louise, I know you talk a lot about the spiraling heart, how the heart has it creates a vortex as it pumps, or it doesn't exactly pump, but as it moves, as it twists, actually, it creates a vortex, which sets the blood on a spiraling motion through the body. Well, this knowledge of the heart working in that way and creating that vortex and that spiraling motion of the blood was known 2,000 years ago. That the twisting motion of the heart was known 2,000 years ago. So a lot of this knowledge has been around for a very, very long time, but it just seems that we've forgotten so much of it. And in terms of the history, a lot changed when William Harvey, back in the 17th century, I think, developed his ideas around circulation. And it was him really, and the people around him, that talked about the heart having a new movement of more like a clenching fist, so a pumping action. That's when a lot of our understanding started to shift, and it tied very much in with a new, more rational way of looking at the body. Almost a sort of mechanical view of the body came in at that time. And at that moment, a lot of our deeper understanding of, first of all, the physical heart, but also the energetic and the spiritual hearts, got lost. And it was at that point that we forgot a lot of that. Louise, I know you talk a lot about that. So there's so much that we did used to understand that we have forgotten. But I strongly feel that, as I said in my talk earlier, the heart is calling out to us at this time to be, for those secrets, those things that have been lost, to be rediscovered. And there's so many people out there doing amazing work all over the world now. There's something in the energy now. With, I just keep discovering new people that are talking about the heart, or researching the heart, or writing about the heart. It just does feel that the energy is just right for this now. Peter and Claire, sorry, I've been talking a long time. Peter.
No, I was just going to, in terms of Nikki's question, the coherence, which is really a word that HeartMath use more than anybody else in this heart setting anyway, is very much about breathing. And in our research, the breathing, over and over again, we've seen that it's something to do with breathing. And you can think of the breath of life, and I talked about inspiration at Big Heart, to inspire. And for many years, I've tried to work out, is it the breathing that's causing the synchronization, causing us to communicate something? And I still don't believe it is, but there's definitely a strong association. Now, in terms of the parasympathetic and sympathetic parts of the nervous system, so it's called the autonomic nervous system for those who are not more familiar with it. Basically, one raises the heart rate and the other lowers it. So the sympathetic tends to raise the heart rate and the parasympathetic tends to lower it. And that comes through the vagal system. So you've got this two-way system going on between the heart and the brain, controlling our heart rate. All right. Now, I think I said it, a Big Heart, the natural heart rate of the heart itself on its own is about 110 beats per minute. So we've clearly got to pull it down to about 70 odd, which is average for most people. But we're going up and down with the heart rate with breathing, and that's the key to coherence. And that is enormously important for physical and mental health. We know that from more and more studies that are being done. And a lot of people who are working in heart rate variability at the moment, unfortunately, are missing the breathing part. They're going for just how much heart rate variability you've got, how big it is, rather than its shape, its pattern. And so what I've been showing you in the research is that pattern, that lovely sine wave. That sine wave is a healthy sine wave. It's a healthy heart, spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, everything that Louise and Liz have been talking about. So yeah, I know we can't say definitively yet how it all works, but there are a lot of people now working on it, particularly something called interoception, which is looking at how the body organs communicate with the brain and each other. So there's a huge growth in that research, all individual at the moment. It's only a matter of time before someone else stumbles on what we've found and realizes that it connects us as well, both in the body, all the organs, but also externally. So I hope that makes more sense for the breathing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, it's really interesting talking about different breathing techniques, because there's also a technique called the Buteyko breathing.
All right, I've heard that one.
it's very different, but it's very shallow breaths, and it's
Okay.
designed to let the partial pressure of carbon dioxide rise. But I'm just curious to know, I'm guessing nobody's done it, but whether you get the coherence with very shallow breaths in and out.
Right, well,
rather than
it'll be a
the
different, the coherence itself requires the deeper, longer breath. in the
Yeah,
way that
yeah.
we're measuring. Unfortunately, coherence has never been standardized as a measure, which it needs to be done. I mean, it's a pity HeartMath didn't do that from the very beginning, because people are beginning to use it in different ways. Even I've used different algorithms for it. So it needs standardizing. But you're probably aware there's a huge interest in breathing in general in well-being and health. James Nestor's book set it all off, but there's lots of people researching it, and there's tens of different ways of breathing, you know, and everyone claims that theirs is the best one and this is the one you need to do. The truth is we have different breathing patterns for different times in life, and what we you know, if we're reading a book, it would be quite different from connecting with someone romantically, say, and that's normal. So I think it's fantastic that people are getting interested in breathing, because most of us breathe pretty badly. Read James Nestor's book if you want to learn about it. It's quite shocking how badly we're breathing, and it affects everything in our bodies and our minds and our hearts and everything. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say. That keep breathing. It's quite important.
Peter, you did just say there though that you don't think breath is the main factor that's affecting heart coherence. So what do you think is our emotional state?
I think it's consciousness, with a big C. And again, consciousness is a very confusing subject in science at the moment. Lots of people playing around with it in different ways. But I believe that we are connected. If you know about quantum physics, that everything is entangled. We know that. You know, the reason we're able to watch this now is because of entanglement, you know, on Zoom and all your phones and everything and satellites. Right. So we know that everything in the universe is entangled. Everything is connected. The physicists know that, but they say there's one exception, and that's human beings. It's essentially what they say. It's impossible for human beings. Therefore, do not even look at the data. I can tell you because I've tried to show them. Right. So I believe we are picking up through some sort of system, and it's obviously the body in some way, because we are experiencing it. We're picking up the fact that we've never been separate. Now we're talking to each other through Zoom, but if we're measuring our heart rate patterns, you'd see they were synchronizing, provided we're bonded, you know, provided we're not judging each other or whatever. We're being aware and attentive. So yeah, we've never been separate, except that our egos and what have you tell us that we might be separate physically, and therefore we're separate consciously as well. So I do think it's a spiritual answer, but whether we'll ever be able to measure that scientifically is another
So
question.
entanglement is, if I'm right, when two particles have had some sort of connection in some way, entanglement says that they'll always be connected however far apart they are, or however time changes. Is that right?
Yes.
Explain it a bit better than I do.
There's a very famous physicist called Richard Feynman says, if you think you understand quantum physics, you don't. Right? Yes. It is the weirdest thing, right? And so we haven't got the words or the intellect to even explain it. But essentially, yes. So a particle the other side of the universe, you know, and it's billions of light years away, can be completely entangled with one here now. So you could change this one, and that one will change instantly. There's no signal that goes between them. But the way I understand that is that they were never separate. They're not 13 billion light years away. They've always been together. So the illusion is that we believe they're separate. So our rather limited minds see space and time as the universe, but we've never been separate. And I think our hearts, this is intuition now, but our hearts, and Louise would agree with this, our hearts know that connection. They just know. But it requires us to let go of our belief that we're separate. before that can happen. And that is love. That is the experience of love. When you remove that separation, that sense of separation, you experience love, and then the heart's synchronized.
I was going to say this ties in with some of the work I do with my clients on a one-to-one basis, and it also ties into sort of what you were saying, Claire, about that upsetting conversation and doing the work with that person before you actually see them. Because what I've done with a lot of people is when someone is struggling with someone in their lives, and I believe this may even be someone who's passed over, not alive anymore, then what we often do is go into the heart space and connect with that person and talk to them and express how we feel and have a conversation, and sometimes sit and cry, sometimes get angry with them, but have that conversation, have that connection, and do some healing with them in that heart space. So not on a physical level, but on that quantum level, if you like. And it makes a difference when people then connect with that person. Something has shifted. So this really speaks to what you're talking about, Peter. And I think that is something that we can all take away from today. Something very practical is that we can actually work on our relationships with people that perhaps, you know, that sometimes it's really difficult to say what's in our heart to someone on a physical level because they don't want to hear it and they're just going to get angry. But we can say those things in our heart, and I can tell you from what I've witnessed, it makes a huge difference, and it can shift the whole energy of that relationship. So that's something we can all do that's so practical and so powerful in my experience.
It's just coming to believe, truly believe in our own power to do that, and then literally change the world around us. So
sometimes we have to put our thoughts aside and just trust it. But
I wonder if anyone else has got any experiences like this when they've done distant sort of healing, distant communication.
Does anyone have any?
Well, just what's coming to me. Oh yeah, sorry.
No, Miriam, you go.
I'm a heart math coach and an embed coach. And we did an exercise on embodied wisdom. And we had an exercise to do to speak head to head, then speak heart to somebody, and gut to gut. And notice the difference. Because we have all these brains inside, and it's just what you're talking is setting the intention that you're going to have a heart to heart with somebody. And it's so different from a head to head. It's that's all left brain, and it's just all logic and reasoning and judgment. But the heart to heart is much more fluid, and even setting the intention of that, of having a conversation heart to heart.
That's so interesting. What was the gut to gut like compared to the other two?
Well, the gut is your identity and your wisdom and I suppose safety. And it depends on where you live your life. Mostly you will resonate with it, I suppose, more. But it's a very interesting practical exercise to actually say, let's have a conversation head to head, and then discuss what that's like, and you know, the difficulty of it for one person or another, and then let's have a heart to heart and notice the difference, and then have a gut to gut.
I mean, again, coming back to language, that heart to heart is a term we use a lot, isn't it? And it does mean that deeper conversation, that deeper connection. So we know inherently what the heart means to us. We may have forgotten it on some level, but on a deeper level, we still know what the heart really truly means in its broadest term. I mean, another thing that I often talk about is if you ask someone, if you're a group of people to point to themselves, they'll point to their heart. because we know that that's where our essence lies. That's where we connect to the truth of who we are, to the spirit. So I think we know this. It's in our genes. It's in our makeup, but it's the head that's forgotten a lot of it.
Yeah.
Trish, were you going to say something then? You're on mute, Trish. Do you want me to?
There you are.
Yeah, well done.
Silly me. No, I had to. I was a counsellor, therapist for back in. I trained in 2000, and I've had to give it up. Well, I tried to go back, but because I've got secondary breast cancer, I've stepped back for a while. But a client that I had 11 years ago, I woke up this morning and saw her face, and I felt really, I don't know, my heart, I did feel warmth. And I've had a message today saying that she's got married and she is thinking of me there with her because of what she changed in her life, and that she's found her partner and she's really happy. So that is, it was wonderful actually, if I'm going to be honest, because I hated stepping back from the counselling world. I loved it, and I did put my heart and soul in. There's your heart, because I work with a lot of young people as well, and I did a mixture, but I missed it terribly. But that this morning, whereas it's come, I was so amazed, and I know, and I also had a lot of things like this when my son was in Australia. I'd know when he was, because he went through a traumatic experience, but I always knew. And I'd say to him, I know something's really wrong. We've got to get hold of him. There's something really wrong, and I always knew. And I'm quite like that with my two children. Actually, I'm very almost too. Sometimes it feels too much because I know before they tell me anything. And when my daughter was pregnant, she walked in to see me, and I said, "Oh, you're pregnant, aren't you? That's what you're going to tell me." And she said, "Yes, Mum." But I think that connection, like you say, it isn't about, if you get rid of this today was, well, that proved to me. I saw her face, and it was like, I felt warm, and I was so lovely.
Yeah, what a really beautiful confirmation that you are connected with this person. I mean, I think all mothers will recognize that deep connection they have with their children. And I mean, we all have heard stories where mothers and fathers know something about their children, without having spoken to them. But to have that connection confirmed with your ex-client is lovely. And Louise, I was just going to ask you to just maybe comment there on some of the language that the heart uses in terms of images and synchronicities and
well, as you were talking, Patricia, I was just reminded of the Sufi mystic tradition, which has a very, very long history, which says that the heart is the seat of images, that the world speaks in images, that God speaks in images, and also James Hillman taking that teaching forward, and Henri Corbin saying that images arise in the heart. That's how the world speaks to us. So the fact that you had this image of your of this beautiful girl and her face this morning would say to me that that's actually arising through your heart, and that there's that connection there that you've established all those years ago, and it comes in through your heart, because that's the place that loves, that gestures out towards the world, and that deep inner knowing, synchronicity, spontaneous images, dream imagery, that's the language of the heart, so yeah, I just think that's just beautiful, a beautiful thing to happen today.
And I would just say further some of that, Louise, is that I think in terms of another practical thing that we can do as we're talking about how to bring these ideas into our life, is to just start noticing these things. And I think as we begin to notice these synchronicities, because I don't know if it was Trish, it was you that just said sometimes our mind gets in the way. Our minds are so noisy that and they tend to have that sort of more cynical view sometimes, and gets in the way when we notice these synchronicities or an image comes in and we start to wonder if that could mean anything. Then our more rational mind comes in. Oh, don't be silly, that was coincidence. But I think as we start to notice these things and quieten that mind down a little, and even maybe write things down, perhaps write down dreams. I had a really vivid dream last night, and I know it means something. I won't tell you the story because it's too weird, but you know, I know it means something. And I reflected on it this morning, but then didn't have time to write it down. But you know, I should have done. And I think as we write down our dreams or little insights we have, or those funny things that just catch our attention, those synchronicities, the more we do that, the more it seems, the more they happen. Perhaps just because we're noticing them, but we can gather so much information from that. So that's another really practical thing that we can all do. And it's a really nice thing to do as well. And so often I've had this experience, I'm sure you all have, times when I'm feeling a little bit lost or a little bit maybe upset by something, then I'll see something that just, I know in my heart that it's a real genuine message from the universe. And, you know, other people might sort of laugh at it, but I know in my heart that it's real and it's a message. So I would encourage you all to sort of really notice those things and write them down. Does anyone else want to add anything to that? Any other experiences? We're close, coming up to 9 o'clock. I can't believe how this time has flown by. I just wanted to say at this point, in terms of the Awakening Heart Collective, as I said at the beginning, we are just going to allow this idea to unfold and see where it leads. We're going to start with a newsletter that will be a bi-monthly newsletter. And what we want to do, really what our main aim is, as I said earlier, to share information around the heart and to share not only what we're doing in our own work, but what other people are doing. Because, as I said, there's many people doing fantastic, either research, scientific research, or they are working with in a therapeutic manner with the heart, or they are setting up communities that are heart-based. There's so much amazing heart-inspired work going on around the world. And I'm discovering something new every week. And I want to share this because I feel a lot of this is quite disparate at the moment. But I think as the heart is our master connector, let's try and connect you and us to this information so that we can really grow and grow our knowledge and our understanding of the heart. So the newsletter will be aimed at sharing what we discover about people doing work around the heart. Some of it will be our own stuff, but a lot of it will be what other people are doing. It might be articles, it might be videos, it might be books. We just want to share what we feel is out there. As well as a newsletter, there'll be information on our Facebook page. I know not everyone is on Facebook. I'm not a huge fan myself, to be honest, but we have thought about it and felt that perhaps for now that's a good platform to start with. So I hope you'll subscribe to the newsletter. It won't be automatic because of the whole privacy GDPR rules around that. So we will ask you in an email to subscribe to that. So I hope you will. And if any of you have any ideas, you might want to say now or think about it and let us know later. But any other ideas of how you feel we can basically facilitate your learning around the heart. We do at some point hope to have some more events, but for now, you know, we haven't got anything specific planned, but we will be looking at that in future. Having said that, we do have something that we are doing in association with a sound healer, Alexandra, who was going to be doing a live gong bath at Big Heart when we had planned to do it as an in-person event. She is going to be hosting an online gong bath with specific focus on the heart. I think it's going to be absolutely beautiful, and that's happening on the 16th of January. So I think that will be a really lovely way for us to connect again and to share heart energy, but with a beautiful background of the gong bath. So I will share all the information about that event in the newsletter and on the Facebook page. So that's just a little bit about what our plans are. But as I said before, we're putting it out there. We're asking the universe to support us, and we're going to be led by our hearts, and we'll see how things unfold. Peter, Claire, Louise, did you want to add anything to that? Or you don't have to, just if you want to.
I just want to say thank you for all of you who come tonight and those who are listening on record. Really appreciate your support. We are learning ourselves how to do this, and as Liz says, you know, if you've got any ideas or if you've got anything to contribute, let us know. We're essentially forming a hub of knowledge, and the vision is to bring more heart to the world. Thank you anyway.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
lovely. I can't say any more than what Liz and Peter have said, but just to say thank you so much for being here. It's just lovely to share this space with you. So yeah, thank you, and hopefully we'll continue the journey together and learn together. Yes, Miriam.
No, just saying thank you to everybody. It's been lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And isn't it so special that we can join on a Zoom? I mean, technology is great in some ways, isn't it, when it works, that we can connect like this. And yes, it would be lovely to be in person with you, but I'm feeling the energy across the airwaves. Those quantum connections are all happening tonight. So it's been a really lovely hour and a half. So great to see you all again. And I want to thank you for being here, for giving up some of your Friday evening to be with us. So you'll hear from us soon. And I want to thank you again for joining. And yes, hope to see you all again soon. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
very much. Thank you. Bye-bye, all of you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.